Calling all Blue Jays fans. Calling all Blue Jays fans. We know. Yesterday was the start of the NFL season, but what is the Blue Jays lineup going to look like moving forward into 2025 if these are the guys we're stuck with?
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB to win $50 instantly when you play $5. As always, welcome back. I'm Braden Wasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Wasco. Carter First too as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. If you're new here on YouTube, make sure you drop a subscription. It really does help us out. It means a ton. We're almost at that 1,600 mark, so it really help us out if you guys pushed us over that limit. And you can always hit that bell icon on YouTube. It notifies you when any videos go live. If you're listening anywhere else, we really appreciate it. As always, big day here in sort of Blue Jays land. It seems like there always is. There's always something to talk about. But we were out. It's a little bit of a late recording. We always record usually right after the games or pretty late. But of course, it was the start of the NFL season, Chiefs versus Ravens. We went over to Locked On Senators host, Paul. I was going to say Paul Sullivan. He's the Locked On MLB host.
Yeah, Paul's still expanding his horizons, actually going to the NHL now, believe it or not. That guy's just, you can't get away from him. He's everywhere across every single league you're going to see.
We went to Locked On Senators host Ross Levitan's house. We were watching the game with him. Absolute blast of a night. Had a good one with him. Shout out to the Locked On Sens boys. They grind. But now we're here. It's pretty late. Game's over, and we're recording. We're ready to rock here. Some good information for you guys. We're talking about the 2025 lineup. Sort of what can it look like? What will it look like? And we're going to talk about it without the necessary the off season, without any free agent signings. If this is the team that we have moving into 2025, what will it realistically look like? Of course, we got our big series preview. We might throw in something else depending on how much time we have. Talk about some of the players that are maybe sort of on the bubble. That might come in segment number 2 here. But Carter, let's kick things off. Let's look at these lineups, all right? We both made different lineups, or they might be similar. They might end up being. We talk Blue Jays, the two of us, every single day. So it's sometimes tough to have differing opinions on guys. Because we're talking all the time. But at the end of the day, we have our own thoughts on guys. We have our own feelings. We have our own feelings of what this lineup should be, where guys should play. If these are the players that we are stuck with moving into 2025, and I say stuck with because some of these guys, realistically, for a World Series caliber team, which this Blue Jays team is quote unquote trying to be, some of these guys will not do well in that situation. So Carter, let's get right into it. I feel like 1, 2, 3 are going to be very similar for us. So how this is going to work, we're going to say our lineups. We're going to talk about sort of the guys, the players, and then we're going to go and talk about, will they actually start next year? Will they be everyday players? And that's going to be a big question. So that's more of like our opinion side of it. How we're starting it off is, okay, these are our options. Just where are you putting people? So I think, Carter, let's just go straight through the lineup. Let's not chit chat about the guys as of to start things off. Let's just kick it off. Who's your top 9? Give me your batting order, positions, everything. I want to hear them.
Yeah, as I was making this lineup, I was thinking that if this was going to be the starting lineup for the 2025 Toronto Blue Jays, we are completely screwed. That's what happens. They don't make any sort of moves. This team is not going to do anything, especially at the bottom of the order. A lot of guys that are doing similar things on the field right now. So it's really just kind of a coin flip at this point. Also, a lot of these guys that are playing at the end of the season don't have a lot of MLB experience. So we're really we're jumping at these takes a little bit early on. We're not giving them a lot of time to develop, but that's what we do as podcast hosts. We give sometimes takes that are a little bit out of line. Hey, who knows? Maybe down the road we'll be right, and this will be the starting lineup for the Toronto Blue Jays. So again, just want to preface this by saying that no, we don't think this will be the Toronto Blue Jays lineup in 2025. This is just, if God forbid, Ross Atkins does absolutely nothing in the offseason, or if somehow he does get fired, if the manager, whoever we do pick up, does absolutely nothing. This is probably the best case scenario. it's sort of the way I phrase this is just if we Trump Blue Jays obviously are not making this playoffs in 2024, but if somehow they did have a series for 2024, this is what the team would look like. So I'll jump right into it. I think 1 and 3 for us will be the same. 2, depending on what you did here, might be a little bit different. But the 1 is, again, kind of it just has to be here. I don't know where else to put this guy. It's George Springer for me, number 1 guy. Second in history with the leadoff home runs. Ricky Henderson's just a million away. So we'll be still on the watch for that. George Springer continues to take that leadoff spot, trying to chase the grind. Will be your starting right fielder for me in 2025. You probably have the same thing. I'm just going to rifle off I'm going to spend most of the time on the second one. The third one, I'm just going to kind of breeze over. I'll just skip the third one now. It's Vladdy. I don't think I'm going to say too much else after that. You look at the season, you look what he's doing. I think this guy is a no-brainer slot in your third spot. The second spot for me is where things could go a little bit awry. There's really only 2 players for me. I decided to go with a guy that I'm very horny for, and I went with Spencer Horwitz in the second spot. So a lefty bat, you want a lefty bat in the top 3 of your order. Springer and Vladdy for me are stapled in 1 through 3. So I like what Spencer Horwitz has done this season. Again, gives you that lefty bat. A guy that can get on base for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has provided a little bit more power than we have expected from a guy like Spencer Horwitz, a guy that was walking a ton, hitting a lot of doubles, just a big barrel guy, a guy that wasn't supposed to be hitting a lot of home runs, not necessarily hitting gaps a ton. But I think he has 8 home runs on the season. He is starting to find his gaps. Obviously came out from AAA very hot, has cooled down slightly, but still, again, a very good effort from Spencer Horwitz. I'd probably have him either as second base or DH for this mock-up. I have him as the DH. You can flip things around. Obviously, a lineup is very mobile and it's fluid. You're not going to have the same lineup every single day, especially in Major League Baseball. But for me, those are my top 3. That's what the 2025 Toronto Blue Jays would look like without any moves this offseason. I'll throw it over to you to give us your starting 3 in the first inning.
Yeah, for sure. So a little different. Obviously, George Springer, right field. I mean, it's just undeniable. If you get the George Springer that we've gotten since the All-Star break or just before the All-Star break, you're thrilled with that. That's the George Springer you want. You want him in the leadoff spot to start producing, and that's what he's done. Number 3 is the same. I have Vlad, obviously first base. Vlad's been the best hitter in the AL, undoubtedly. And he's fighting for the batting title right now. So there you go. It shouldn't be much of a discussion. Number 2 for me is Bo Bichette. I think, again, looking forward to 2025, we have to expect Bo Bichette to somewhat come back to what Bo Bichette has been. Hopefully he can figure out this injury. Everything gets back to normal. Bo Bichette gets hot again, and he's the player that you want him to be, that gets on base, that drives runs, to set up that situation for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And of course, I have Bo at short. Carter, moving forward, I want to get into my 4, 5, 6, then I'll pass it back to you. My 4 is a guy that you discussed very well, Spencer Horwitz. He's been excellent, and he's been everything that I've wanted from a guy moving up through AAA and sort of cementing himself into this lineup. And I have Spencer Horwitz not as the DH. I have him as the second baseman. Again, I do not want to prioritize defense. Yes, if it is just horrible, then something has to be switched. But at the end of the day, this team needs bats and needs them well. I want Spencer Horwitz at second base. Number 5 for me is Dalton Varsho in center field. If you're good, Dalton Varsho is going to be a hot and cold hitter. He's going to hit for more power. He's got a lot of speed, but he doesn't really get on base a whole ton. So he can't sometimes use that speed. But Dalton Varsho is a great guy that when he is hot, he can slot into that number 5 role very, very well. And that's what I expect in the last few games. We've seen Dalton Varsho be very, very good. So if he can continue on to that into 2025, and I'm going solely based on upside here. What is their upsides? Why can they go here? So I have Dalton Varsho center field at number 5. Number 6, a guy that has, I think shocked the world as of late a little bit. We were all pretty concerned of what was going to happen, and that's Alejandro Kirk. After the trade of Danny Jansen, we were all a little bit concerned about what Alejandro Kirk was going to bring to the table. Would he be the start of the season Alejandro Kirk, or was he going to go back and start hitting like he did back a couple years ago? Good thing is Alejandro Kirk has been hitting like that. So it's very, very good. And I want him in that 6th spot if we can. Yes, he's not the most explosive hitter on the planet, but for a 6th spot role, I think Alejandro Kirk fits very nicely in there. And of course, he's the catcher. Carter, passing it back to you for your 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, for me, I figured that the 2 and 4 might be a little bit different. I just had, I think Bo Bichette is a better hitter with runners in scoring position. I have Spencer Horwitz from this year. Bo Bichette, I'm not going to get into. It's just an off year. If you look at what Bo Bichette's doing this year, you probably don't even want him on your baseball team. So that's why you can't take away too many takes from just 1 year of baseball. You kind of have to look at people's careers before baseball. Again, there's one-year wonders for a reason. But looking at Spencer Horwitz, just with runners in scoring position here. So obviously for me, he would be hitting my second. For you, he's hitting 4. Obviously hitting 4. You're hoping that you can get Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on. Again, you hope that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. can clear the bases and that Spencer Horwitz is hitting with nobody on. But in that case, if Spencer Horwitz is coming up, obviously you want him to be able to do some damage. So with scoring position, 245 average, 377 OBP, and a 283 slugging for 660 OPS. Not the greatest thing out of the, again, players scoring position, runners in scoring position. But again, Spencer Horwitz, you look at this guy's service time. You look at a lot of these guys that we're going to cover, their service time. A very young team in the Toronto Blue Jays that has completely flipped the script. And you look at guys like Justin Turner, Kevin Kiermaier, look at the Toronto Blue Jays, look at the way they're trending right now. There is a lot of youth in this baseball team. So it is kind of tough to make these rankings and tough to make predictions on these guys because we haven't had a lot of service time. Their careers could go any which way. They could pull an Anthony Rendon and be the worst player of all time, or just completely turn their careers around. Like maybe a guy like Luis Arias just kind of comes up out of nowhere. Maybe has some Kevin Biggio fates on this podcast. Maybe Bradley Zimmer be sent to the moon. But again, I'll go into my my 4. I obviously have Bo Bichette as the 4 spot. That's the 2-4 flip. I think with Bo Bichette, when he's fully healthy, I think he can provide a better ability to drive runners in from the 4 spot than Spencer Horwitz could. And again, you get that left-handed bat a little bit higher up in your lineup. But Bo Bichette's raking. Maybe you move him up. You experiment with this. Got a little bit fluid with this lineup. I have Alejandro Kirk 5th. Just based off what he's done so far. I think he can try to build on this. Again, you get that little bit of a break with your lefty right-handed splits. Alejandro Kirk, if he can continue to line balls in the outfield, the biggest thing for me is the double play ball. You don't want this guy hitting the ball on the ground in the 5th spot because that is going to hurt your team a whole lot, especially when you got the 4 guys in front of them. Hopefully getting on base a whole lot. Alejandro Kirk will be with the catcher tandem. That probably will not be Brian Serven. So it'll be interesting to see who the Toronto Blue Jays do go out and get. I don't think they'll go internal with that, but we'll save that for another episode. So I just have the Kirk and Varsho flip. I have Varsho hitting 6. Yeah, very inconsistent hitter. A guy, again, that's more power in your lineup and a good left-handed bat. Is on a hot streak right now, so congrats to Dalton Varsho for that, just to give him his flowers a little bit. But a guy that you're really relying for on the defense, a guy that's going to be out there every single time, every single day playing center field, which I have loved to watch. Dalton Varsho play center field since Kevin Kiermaier has been moved, so that's been a blessing for us, obviously. You can find any sort of consistency with the bat, as we have been preaching on this podcast since the dawn of time, it feels like. Dalton Varsho can literally hit 240 and hit 20, 25 home runs every single season and provide you the defense he's providing you. Don't think many people are going to complain about Dalton Varsho on the offensive side of the baseball. So these bottom 3, the top 6, fairly similar. We had a few guys switched around. This bottom 3, I think, is where it's sort of going to get a little crazy here. We might have some off-brand takes. So I'm just going to take this one by one here. I'm going to start with 7. So I'm going to start with my 7 hitter, a guy that I have been very high on again since the start of the season. In my early season predictions, I wanted this guy to turn into an everyday baseball player. Has that happened? I guess you could say so. Is it the way I want it to happen? Not exactly, but my 7 hitter is Ernie Clement, a guy that has really won me over and a lot of Blue Jays fans over since the start of the season. Can pretty much play anywhere in the infield. He's going to slot into my 3rd base position here in the 7th spot. A guy that is just a contact hitter, a guy that pretty much anything you want this guy to do. You want him to go out there and provide you a gritty at-bat and just take some pitches, give a little bit of a scouting report for the boys, maybe put a ball in play. He's going to do that for you. Ernie Clement, a guy's guy. Just the definition of this guy is just a team morale guy. He's a team player. You'll love to see it. Ernie Clement is my 7-hole hitter for the 2025 Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, Carter, I can't argue with anything you just said. And I'll get into where Ernie Clement falls for me, but it's not in the 7th hole. And I think I have a good reason for that. Again, when this Toronto Blue Jays team is successful, it has a very solid 9-hole hitter that flips the order over. And for me, I would rather have Ernie Clement sitting in that 9-hole. So a little spoiler, Ernie Clement's my 9-hole hitter. I want that guy to be able to flip the lineup over and sort of work as a double leadoff hitter sort of moving throughout the game. And I think that works out very well for George Springer to possibly drive him in with those, leadoff bombs or bombs coming from that leadoff position. So I that's why I have him there. Going back to number 7 here. And Carter, you know what? You wanted to go one by one. I've sort of wrecked that. And so I'm just going to go through mine and we can sort of chat about it and you can argue with me. Number 7 for me is Joey Lopervito, playing left field. Now, again, a very up and down guy. Not really sure how I stood with this, but sort of looking through the options, I like Joey Lopervito. And I think that as a fielder, he's shown that he can track balls well. He makes nice plays in the outfield. And there is upside with his bat. I think there's a lot more to come. I actually am pretty impressed with what I've seen from Joey Loperfido so far. Yes, again, very streaky, very young guy. He's going to be able to figure it out, I think. But we'll have to see what sort of comes with that. Moving into my 8 hole here, because I talked about my 9. So, like I said, I have Joey Loperfido playing left field. So the position that I have left open right now is third base and DH. For my DH, and again, this maybe isn't going into tomorrow's lineup. This is more so what I think is going to happen if I were to predict a 2025 lineup, if these were going to be the players. And this might rub some people the wrong way. My DH is Davis Schneider. The upside with him, and I have to slot him in at the 8 hole because he hasn't been playing well. But I think with off-season time and everything like that, I think the upside of Davis Schneider, and if he can figure it out, is so important. He's a guy that can hit for power. He gets on base a ton. I mean, Carter, a stat that really shocked me still to this day is, yes, Davis Schneider isn't hitting like you want Davis Schneider to hit. And there's no doubt about that. He's hitting a 195 on the season. I compare him to a guy who you are very high on in Ernie Clement. Ernie Clement is hitting a 260. The impressive statistic that I have, and I think what my brother Jarvis Uwasko would say, is he thinks that on-base percentage should be more important than your actual batting average. And not all the time, but in this connotation and talking about a lineup and talking about Davis Schneider's on-base percentage still is a 289. He sees a lot of pitches. He knows the zone well. If he can figure out how to get his bat on the ball, it's only going to get better. I think this guy gets undervalued still. And Ernie Clement's talking about a guy who you say is playing so well, and you're shocked that you want him to be an everyday player. His on-base percentage is 283. Less still than Davis Schneider's is. And yes, there's more upside to hitting with average and not taking those walks all the time. But in doing so, talking about an 8th hole hitter, you want just a guy that can get on base. And we're not even talking about the upside. We're talking about where Davis Schneider is right now. He's still getting on base a ton. So again, that's my rant. I will always go on rants for Davis Schneider, and that's what I've done again. So he rounds out my spot as the DH. Yes, right now, everybody's right, not hitting well. But I think the upside is there. And then to kick things sort of off, like I talked about with Ernie Clement, being that guy that flips the lineup over, that can sort of work as a dual leadoff hitter in some situations. I have Ernie Clement playing 3.
Yeah, I don't hate that. Davis Schneider being the lineup is a little bit of a hot take, I'd say, at this point. I don't have him in my lineup going into next year. I'll say it right there. I want to go into my Ernie Clement. I got to defend my boy here after a bit, but I do want to go into the rest of my lineup because I think I'm going to get you here with one as well. So in my 8th spot, I do have Will Wagner, kind of the same sort of idea, I guess you could say, is that you want a guy to get on base. You want just a guy to turn over the order. Will Wagner is not going to be a guy that's going to provide power. He's going to be sort of similar to Ernie Clement in that sense, just pretty much from the left side, going to put the ball on the bottom of the ball. He's going to hit the gap a little bit more than Ernie Clement. A guy that, again, is going to have some competitive at-bats. He's the barrel skills and the barrel percentage of this guy has been a little bit ridiculous recently. So you get a guy like Ernie Clement, you get a guy like Will Wagner back-to-back, very good bat-to-ball skills. Can you have a little bit of fluctuation? You can do some hit and runs. You can do, obviously, some stealing situations. Still, just gives you flexibility at the bottom of the order. And this one, for me, in 2025, no moves made whatsoever. Again, we talk about upside a lot of times on this team. This isn't necessarily an upside pick, and this isn't a guy that we have talked about really at all throughout this entire season because he's had some injuries. Spent a lot of time with AAA. Just recently has gotten with the 2024 Toronto Blue Jays. And that is my boy, Nathan Lucas, holding down the left field position on the Toronto Blue Jays in 2025. You look at what this guy's done, very small sample size in this season, hitting 400. I'm not going to go into his MLB stat because, again, this has like 12 plate appearances. There's not really a ton here. So I'm not going to get into that. But you look at this guy's minor league stats. His OPS sits around 800. He's going to provide you great defense. And you look what he was doing the last 2 years in the minor leagues. He's been a 300 hitter. So I think you look at a guy like Ernie Clement, you look at what he did in the minor leagues. He has shown you the ability to play consistently, provide you good defense, and just have productive at-bats. Nathan Lucas is a guy that can play pretty much anywhere in the outfield. He's going to be able to get on base fairly often, and a guy that should be able to flip the order for George Springer. The reason I didn't go for a guy like Joey Lopervito, Aston Barger, guys like this is because I think Nathan Lucas is just a little bit more proven. He's shown it to be more consistent for a longer period of time. You look at Will Wagner, you look at guys like Leo Jimenez, Aston Barger. I think they can benefit from raking a little bit longer in AAA. That's why I don't have them in the system. I think Nathan Lucas is not talked about enough for the Toronto Blue Jays, but again, availability is the best ability. Guy has not been available for you. I think you give him a shot here throughout spring training, and you give him a shot to play for your starting baseball team in 2025, albeit this is without any free agency moves. So if Nathan Lucas is actually on the 2025 Toronto Blue Jays, probably not going to be too happy about that.
Okay, that was interesting, Carter. And you know what? I have rebuttals to both of those, and I will let you know them. But we're 20 minutes in, and we got to take a break. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with my rebuttal to Carter's last two positions there, because I don't know how I feel about those ones.
Are you taking that dream vacation this summer but dreading the cost? With Ibotta, you can get cash back on all of your purchases, so you can spend more time making memories this summer and less time dreaming about them. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, buy that flight you've been eyeing, that game you've been dying to go to, or that fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and you can get real cash back that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. You can join the over 50 million savers and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands and retailers, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta and using code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app. Start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONMLB.
So, Carter, I said I was coming back with a rebuttal to your two picks there. Will Wagner, Nathan Lucas. For me personally, moving into 2025, I love Will Wagner. I think Will Wagner has been outstanding. I've loved everything about his game. Not one thing has made me dislike this guy. But in saying that, I feel like there is no reason to have him on this team in 2025. I think this guy has not been for this team very long. He needs more AAA experience. He needs more, because I just haven't seen enough. I don't know what he would look like over an entire season. And for that reason, I just wouldn't trust him with the starting position in this lineup. Talking about Nathan Lucas now. Nathan Lucas.
Before you get into Nathan Lucas, I just want to give you a little bit of a devil's advocate remark here.
Sure.
You have Joey Lopervito in your lineup, and then you're saying Will Wagner does not have the service time you would like to have him in AAA. I just want to see how these two players kind of differ in those two aspects. And then I'll give you the reason why I picked Will Wagner over Joey Lopervito. It's pretty
and it's fine. I don't hate a Will Wagner pick. It's more so the fact that I just haven't seen enough from him. He just hasn't had any MLB experience, and Joey Lopervito hasn't had much either. But me personally, I don't feel confident enough to say that over even 40 games that Will Wagner will be this good, because I don't know. I haven't seen him play 40 games. I haven't seen him be this outstanding player that long. It's more so not the fact that I don't think he can do it. I think it's just in my head, I haven't seen enough from him to prove that this can be a consistency. That's more so what it is. Not that because he's young, because he's whatever, because we've seen young guys come up and be good. It's just not proven to me personally yet.
Yeah, with Will Wagner and Joey Lopervito, with those two players, it was very similar for me. The two guys that, again, they have upside. Joey Lopervito probably going to give you a little bit more power. Again, a guy that is fast, has other attributes that can attribute to a competitive and successful baseball team. Will Wagner's this type of guy that, I don't know, you slot him in. You can slot him in the infield anywhere. He's going to provide you pretty good defense. Really, the thing for me between these two players, I find they have very similar profiles for these two guys. Just the difference is Will Wagner plays infield and Joey Lopervito plays outfield. The only reason I didn't have Joey Lopervito in this lineup is because I did decide to go with Nathan Lucas, as we'll get into. But with Will Wagner, just a guy that I need in the infield. Again, if you look at it for 2025, if you're running out Nathan Lucas, Will Wagner, Joey Lopervito, any combination of these players, you're probably not in that good of a spot. But it's just fun for right now with what we're left with the Toronto Blue Jays. So I'll let you get into the Nathan Lucas thing. I kind of had this as being a debate, so that's why I wanted to set some time aside for this take, and then I'll kind of go into the Ernie and Davis stuff that we talked about.
Yeah, so for sure. And the Will Wagner stuff, like I said, everything that Will Wagner's done, no shade to him. I've loved everything about him. I just haven't seen enough. At the end of the day, that's about it. And Nathan Lucas, sort of the same thing. AAA and the MLB are very different. You can tell me as many stats as you want from AAA, and I take it with the smallest grain of salt. It's very different. Pitchers are very different. It's a whole nother step up. And yes, he's been good enough for right now, but again, it's the same thing. I just haven't seen nearly enough from Nathan Lucas for me to be comfortable putting him in a lineup, in my projected starting lineup for 2025. I just don't think that that's possible for me.
Okay, so this was my thinking with the Nathan Lucas stuff. A guy that, again, he's not going to provide you the greatest offense of all time. He's not going to go out there and hit you 30 home runs. He's not going to have a 400 average. This is a guy that is 30 years old. A guy that, if in this situation with the Toronto Blue Jays, would not be playing regular minutes. He is the 9-hitter for a reason on this team. Again, you'd have some bench spots. We could talk about Aston Barger, stuff like that, why I didn't go with these guys. But you look at the 2025 roster, again, when you're in Nathan Lucas' spot, you're not going to be playing every day. So the reason why I didn't want Joey Lopervito in that spot necessarily is I want this guy getting as many plate appearances as humanly possible. Nathan Lucas has been in the Toronto Blue Jays system for 4 or 5 years. 4 to 5 years now. I guess this late episode is starting to get to me a little bit, as don't record this late usually. But with a guy like Joey Lopervito, you want him playing as much as you can. And with Nathan Lucas, how long are you going to have this guy, this 30-year-old, in your AAA system? Like, again, you do need some depth players. You do need some players just in case guys get injured. But if you're looking upside here, you're looking Will Wagner, Joey Lopervito, Aston Barger. You can even throw Leo Jimenez in there. There's David Schneider. If you're looking upside, all of those players have better upsides than a guy like Nathan Lucas. But for the role that he would have to fill, and I'm not saying Nathan Lucas is a bad baseball player because you see the small sample sizes over the last 2 years. He has been a very good player in AAA and has done well with the Toronto Blue Jays in an extremely small sample size. But my stance on this is that you just want your younger players to be playing baseball. They wouldn't necessarily be able to do that playing this last spot in the lineup, kind of a utility role for the Toronto Blue Jays. So you give Nathan Lucas your chance here. You figure out if he can actually perform at an MLB level. Maybe you move on from him, and you give, in turn, some AA guys maybe an opportunity to get that promotion to AAA and start taking some of those reps.
Yeah, and just to sort of cap this off, and I don't hate the take at all. Like, I think it's a good talk and sort of a good conversational piece between some of these guys. The biggest thing that it comes down to for me with Nathan Lucas and Will Wagner's only played 19 games in the MLB, and Nathan Lucas this year has played 3. So at the end of the day, maybe you bring them in partway through the season. I just think as a starting, your opening day roster, it's more so just these guys needed games, and I would not feel comfortable throwing them right back in yet. But at the end of the day, it's a great conversation. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comments. Sort of what your lineup would look like if this was it and no moves made, because it is Ross Atkins. You don't ever know what's going to happen. Let us know what you guys think. We really want to hear about it. You can hit us up on Twitter as well. Braden 5, you also go Carter first too. So let us know. In saying that, Carter, I know I
gotta defend my boy Ernie Clement here quickly.
I know I was gonna throw it right back to you, but that's fine.
Perfect. Yeah. But okay, before we do go again, you keep talking about this Will Wagner game stuff. Joey Lopervito has 65 games or something along these lines. 65. I just pulled it up. So you're looking at service time. I don't think you can make the argument that Joey Lopervito is a more serviceable MLB talent just because he's played 25 more games than Will Wagner. So again, you look at these guys.
It's more so just a me thing, honestly. Like in my head, I've seen Joey Lopervito. I haven't seen Will Wagner enough. 65 games is also 40 more games than what Will Wagner's done. I've been able to see Joey Lopervito 40 more times.
Some of those games are with the Houston Astros, though. Just I'm going to put that out there as well. So, I mean, yes, you're right in that sense. You do get the more games with Joey Lopervito, but just an interesting stance. Didn't think you'd go necessarily that direction with your choices between Will Wagner and Joey Lopervito. But you talked about, again, we're going back a little bit, 10 minutes in this podcast at this point now with all the yapping we've been doing. But the Davis Schneider, the OBP thing. This guy's striking out it's a million times, just every single at bat. You look at this, not every single at bat, it's a little bit of an exaggeration. A lot of at bats, this guy comes up, they don't look competitive whatsoever. Again, right now, it's just he's not swinging at good pitches. He's getting beaten by the high fastball. It's been a problem for him a lot recently. Obviously, something that he is working on. I'm not that naive to say that David Schneider doesn't know what he needs to work on. But you look at just the quality of at-bats. And yeah, you look at the OBP, made a good point. You got a guy hitting 8-9 in the lineup. You don't necessarily care if he's getting on base with a walk or a single. It's just as long as you get on base, you turn over the lineup for your power bats at the top of the order. But you look at the quality at bat, like right now, again, you hope that Davis Schneider can really turn things around in the offseason. If he's playing this way, you probably don't have him in your lineup. You're looking at the upside. Definitely giving you the upside point on Ernie Clement as well. Davis Schneider is just going to hit for more power than Ernie Clement. Don't necessarily think that is a debate right now. But with Ernie Clement, it's just that the quality of at bat right now has just shown more consistency. And we always talk about consistency on this podcast. You look at David Schneider, has not had a very consistent MLB career. That's not saying that I don't like David Schneider as a player. Don't want to see him succeed. I don't want to see him succeed. I definitely do. But he has not shown us that consistency. You look at Ernie Clement with the time with the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, recency bias, but David Schneider, a guy that just came up last year in the MLB anyway. So comparison sort of fits. He has been a very serviceable player. Hasn't really shown you any stretches where he has been just like a horrendous hitter at the plate. Yeah. Again, MLB players go through stretches. They're not going to be 100% every single day. You look at Aaron Judge this last week, he's hitting like 170. Does that mean he's a bad baseball player? Absolutely not. He's still probably the best hitter in all of baseball. So again, you guys go through stretches. You get Ernie Clement a little bit of consistency. But I don't hate the Davis Schneider pick. I just, with right now, use that on-base stuff. And that is good for Davis Schneider's eye. But it's the pitches that are in the zone that we need to worry about with David Schneider right now. And he's going to be able to drive those pitches rather than watching the balls go by when we need singles, doubles, and triples from the sky.
Absolutely. And that was no point of an argument for me to say that Davis Schneider is where Ernie Clement is right now. It's pretty obvious to anybody that watches these games that there's a big difference. It was just a very interesting stat and a comparison to show that, even if guys aren't hitting, there's other parts and components and everything. The whatever you want to call it, the money ball logic, right? If a guy is getting on base, he's still getting on base, right? And so it was more so just a comparison than anything. It was not saying that David Schneider and Ernie Clement are equals right now, because they're not. David Schneider has some things to figure out, and we know that.
They're just two players who are going to provide you two different things. You're not looking for Ernie Clement to do David Schneider's job, and you're not looking for David Schneider to do Ernie Clement's job.
And it was more so just a statistics thing, an interesting stat that I found. No argument in saying that, and that's why I had Ernie Clement hitting where I have Ernie Clement, because I know that Ernie Clement can also drive the ball. He can get on base. He has other ways of finding on base. He just maybe doesn't have. David Schneider obviously has gotten on base more, but Ernie Clement can hit those doubles, can hit those triples, can hit those home runs as well right now. So no comparison. That was just a cool, interesting thing I saw the other day, and thought I'd bring it up here.
But let's quickly look at comparisons here. We're looking at the home runs. You say David Schneider might have more power than Ernie Clement. I think I want to see these home run numbers. They're probably going to be more similar than a lot of people do think. I'll try to find them here, and I'll just go through it back to you. Just final thoughts, just kind of how you've ranked this prospects, how you view the season for the 2025 Toronto Blue Jays. How do these rankings actually translate to the 2025 season? Just give us your final thoughts real quick.
Yeah, so just to touch on your Ernie Clement, David Schneider home runs, Ernie Clement does have 11 right now, and David Schneider only has 10. So there you go. But it's also been just the worst stretch of baseball for David Schneider in his time of when he was good. The home runs were coming at much more of an accelerated rate.
And you could probably say that Ernie Clement is on one of his better stretches of baseball right now as well. And that's why, again, you like in totality, looking from a broad perspective, David Schneider, and again, you look at ages too. David Schneider should, the way it's trajecting, end up being a better baseball player than Ernie Clement, but I don't really like to compare the two players on the team too much. I just want everyone to be successful and have good at-bats and just be enjoyable to watch, because I don't like watching boring baseball. But just final thoughts for me. Whether it's David Schneider, Joey Lopervito, Will Wagner, any of these prospects, it doesn't really matter. Again, you're pretty much just picking names out of a hat and you're guessing, because from what we've seen, unless you got this keen scouting baseball eye, which some fans will claim to have, I definitely will not be that guy. But I need to see at least probably more than 1 or 2 seasons, probably 2 full seasons of a baseball player to actually get a analysis and a good feel for how good this player could actually be for our baseball team. You got guys like Will Wagner we're fighting over 25 games service time, 65. Not really going to matter too much in the grand scheme of things. So I'm going to leave it at this. I think you can agree with this. The Toronto Blue Jays need to make free agency moves so desperately. If they run it back with anything like this, we're going to be in for a long 162 games. But the only fun thing about this is that we don't know a lot about these players and we don't know how they'll actually end up. So we can just use it in our heads, be delusional, and think that Joey Lopervito and Will Wagner are going to lead the league in batting average and probably home runs next year. So we'll have to discuss that when it gets down the road for the AL batting title.
Yeah, just to sort of wrap things up on mine, Carter. I mean, it was a very interesting conversation. And these are the conversations we like to have because I think everybody has their own little bits and there's all these pieces. That's why baseball's so interesting. There's so many little statistics, little things that you look for, right? So it's really fun to take a look at. Yeah, the David Schneider, Ernie Clement thing's hilarious. I think these two guys, the roommates, probably wouldn't enjoy the conversation of us debating it between the two of them either. So hilarious there, but it is fun. It is fun. It's two guys came up sort of together, roommates. It's just a hilarious conversation. To wrap it all up, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. If we have this same team rolling out next season, we're in for a world of pain. And that's just how it is. There has to be moves made. And I think everybody that watches the Blue Jays baseball knows that the free agency has to be big here. If they want to quote unquote contend, as they always say they want to do, there has to be big moves made. And we'll get more into that as it sort of goes along here. But besides that, Carter, I mean, that's the big the writing on the wall right now. Moves need to be made.
Yeah, we're not going to be arguing about which young star is going to be hitting 9 in the lineup. We're probably going to be arguing which coping mechanism we should use to watch the Toronto Blue Jays for this game of Toronto Blue Jays baseball. But saying that, again, good debate. There's a lot of more things we can talk about. I do eventually want to kind of rank these prospects, rank the guys that haven't necessarily had these big service times in the MLB. And then just for the future, hopefully, again, we talk about we want to do this podcast for a long time. Down the road, we can see how keen our scouting eye actually is for the Major League Baseball. And just to see how these players do develop and just kind of what our takes were on them before we really got to see what these guys brought to our MLB franchise. But we do have a series to preview, a lot of NL games coming up, which is an interesting way to finish off your last 21 games of the season. But before we do head over there, I just want to give a shout out to Sully, is the host of Locked On MLB. Great content over there. Has some, it's a pretty interesting guy. Little wild, little crazy takes, keeps things interesting on his podcast. So perfect opportunity for you guys to check out all things MLB over with Sully on Locked On MLB. But we got a Braves podcast. Jeez, I'm tough. I'm having a tough time with words today.
It's late, man.
I'm mixing up a lot of things. But we got a Braves series preview against the Toronto Blue Jays to break down. So we're going to get into that after this short break. Today's podcast is also sponsored by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you can pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. So with the NFL going on, obviously we were watching that today. No Toronto Blue Jays game, so I'm going to kind of combine my picks, what I had. So I'm going to lay out the Blue Jays ones. I got Vladdy more than 7 fantasy points, a guy that I am hammering more than on a lot this second half of the season. Also Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on total bases. And I'm going to throw George Springer on that, both of them at 1.5. Did have Derrick Henry anytime touchdown score. That hit in this last Thursday's game. Had more than Lamar rushing yards. I believe that one was at like 45. That one blown out of the water. Couple other ones with PrizePicks, stuff like that. Just belted off a few off the top of my head. We're always hammering the picks with PrizePicks. You guys should take this opportunity as well. If you know which players are going to perform on specific nights, it's a no-brainer. Download PrizePicks and start making your picks today. You can download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for first deposit matchup to $100. It's code LOCKEDONMLB for first deposit matchup to $100. PrizePicks, run your game.
So, Carter, we said we got a series to preview. We drew this conversation out so long as we do. I said to Carter before the show started, I was like, hey, you know what? If this might be a short one, it's one topic. We don't gotta, go on forever, and here we are. So, Carter knew it was gonna happen.
Braden's like, hey, do you want to have anything else ready for this podcast? We might not have enough time. Like, Braden, I've been around the Locked On Blue Jays boys a time or two. We're going to have enough time. We're probably going to need more time, actually. But saying that, yeah, we do have a lot of Brave series. They've been playing, like, okay baseball. I've started to kind of get back into what's going on around the league a little bit. I had to take a week off of looking at the standings because for me, for some reason, it took until a month left in the season for me to finally realize Toronto Blue Jays weren't making the playoffs. So I had to take a little bit of a mental break. The Braves coming off a loss against the Colorado Rockies, still won the series 2-1. The Rockies aren't that good of a baseball team. Okay, so I don't have any of the Blue Jays pitchers for some reason, but I have all the Braves ones. So I don't know if you have the Blue Jays guys.
I got them. Yeah,
I'll
I got
throw it
them.
over to you to break it down.
Yeah, so game 1 today, 6:20 our time, 7:20 Eastern. Kevin Gausman versus Max Fried. Fried's having a great season. It looks really good. 8-8 on the season. The wins, losses again. Take that with a grain of salt, however you want to take it. Should be an interesting one. Saturday's game: Jose Barrios versus Schwellenbach. Schwellenbach's not had the best season of all time. Again, not a great record going up against Jose Barrios, who has been iffy lately, but is starting to look better again. Hopefully that one will be a good game. And then the Sunday, afternoon game, Yariel Rodriguez versus Chris Sale. And that is not a matchup anybody wants to see, is Yariel Rodriguez facing off against Chris Sale of all people. But that's where we're at. It should be an interesting series. It's going to be fun, I think, to see how good the Braves are. I mean, they just lost, like you said, to the Colorado Rockies, who have been mathematically eliminated. So there you go. They're the second team in the league that has been now actually done. Just their season has been called officially. So there you go. It should be interesting, Carter. I'm just looking forward to having a good weekend of baseball. It's a huge weekend. This is a crazy weekend. Thursday night football, Friday football, Friday Jays, Saturday Jays, Saturday night or Saturday afternoon is Banjo Bowl for those of you from Winnipeg or Saskatchewan who know the CFL. It is the biggest game of the year here in Winnipeg. It's going to be unbelievably fun. And then we got the rodeo Saturday night. Sunday is Blue Jays baseball, Sunday night football. It's going to be electric. And then, of course, Monday for Blue Jays and Monday night football. So it's just crazy. It's getting that time of year where the sports are sportsing like we want them to. So, yeah, man, I don't know. I'm pretty pumped. It's gonna be a ton of fun. It's gonna be busy for us, but it's gonna be a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's probably the best time of the year to be a sports fan, especially if your baseball team was going to be in the playoffs going into October. Unfortunately, we're not there with the Toronto Blue Jays, but you got the NHL coming around the corner. NFL, obviously, the first game was the day we're recording this. A lot of fun. It's sports orientated. That's where we're at for just everywhere. Not even just Toronto Blue Jays, just everything in general. Obviously, we're big sports guys. We're huge in the Toronto Blue Jays, probably way more in the Toronto Blue Jays than any other sports, but we do like to take some time off of a little bit of, I guess, the analyst side of things and just try to watch some NFL football for just our enjoyment. Obviously, we're dialed into the fantasy aspect of that too. But it's that time of the year that the double monitors, the triple, maybe the quadruple monitors come out. You got Toronto Blue Jays baseball on. Maybe you got a few NHL games coming on as we get throughout this year. And then obviously you got your NFL Sundays. So that's going to be a lot of the time what's happening on my Sundays, especially with the Toronto Blue Jays season festering out here a little bit. But yeah, we got Chris Sale, Yariel Rodriguez, the matchup of the weekend, some are saying. So excited for that. The only other thing I got is thank you to whoever the schedule makers were. 6:20 start on Saturday, the Banjo Bowl for us. This again, Central Time, 2:00. Should be able to get back for the Toronto Blue Jays game. So be just a little bit of a sports marathon for the Saturday, which I'm pretty fired up for. Going into Sunday, where it's going to be a sports marathon all day. So,
we got hockey Sunday too. Our first hockey game. Holy moly, what a weekend! It's going to be a ton of fun. Quick update for those of you paying attention to our, we sort of update you guys once in a blue moon on our baseball fantasy league semifinals. I'm winning. I should be in the finals next week. I'll keep you guys updated on how that all finishes out. Me and Carter are going head to head this week in NFL fantasy. So far, I'm up 19.8-0 because Carter has not had any guys play. So we'll see how that goes. We got a little bit of a side bet on that. So we'll let you guys know how that goes as well. Quick shout out to Locked On MLB host Paul Sullivan. Sully, his podcast is great. You guys got to check it out. Again, like Carter said before, it's just like all of the information and the big storylines going on in the MLB. It's such a fun podcast. He runs a great show. Shout out to Sully. Check that out. Locked On MLB, anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube as well. Also, thanks always for you guys listening to us and making us your first listen every day. We really appreciate it. Drop the subscription if you're still here and you haven't already. We really appreciate it, and it helps us out. We're getting close to 1,600. We want to be there. But we've done enough yapping, Carter. I think let's get out of here. Me and you, this podcast has to be up we usually post it actually in an hour and 45 minutes. So quick editing, throw it up. It'll be good to go for all of you guys paying attention early on in the mornings. Anything else, Carter, before we dip out of here?
No, it's just let's hope Will Wagner and Joey Loperito can just hit 750, both of them, and then we can argue which one will actually be in the 2025 Toronto Blue Jays final roster, because they're going to have quite the insanity runs to the end of the years if they're both going to make this Toronto Blue Jays roster. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and just have a safe weekend. Don't do anything too stupid. We'll try to do the same things. Obviously, some weekends are harder than others, but yeah, just enjoy your weekend.